Subculture gatekeeping in general has existed for a really long time, and I think now more than ever it's become extremely relevant. The internet has made it much easier to participate in many different subcultures, and so many of these subcultures, which were once niche and attracted people with very specific interests, have become more mainstream and seemingly more broad. Now, whether you think this is a good or a bad thing is pretty much tied to whether you think gatekeeping is a good or a bad thing. Anyway, I really wanted to talk about subculture gatekeeping, especially now after the recent Drake 20v1 video, which, like, the whole world has seen at this point. Alright, so most people join or participate in certain subcultures because they view them as a community, a safety net, a space to safely identify, a way to express uniqueness, and many other genuine reasons. The point is that the reasons are genuine, and so they come to love these subcultures and feel genuinely passionate about them, and rightfully so. Now imagine you're one of these people, and you see someone who is very influential basically exploiting your subculture for selfish reasons, with no regard for how harmful what they're doing is to the subculture itself and to the people participating in it. And I'm not just saying this, by the way, let me give you an example of this actually happening. The goth subculture has become extremely mainstream. However, this is not inherently a positive thing. In fact, the goth subculture has become grossly misrepresented online, and one of the reasons for this is a group of OnlyFans models, one of them being present in Drake's 20v1, whose promotional content is heavily reliant on them being quote-unquote goth girls. These creators play a big role in sexualizing goth women due to their online influence, and this is obviously very damaging to the goth subculture in general, but it's especially damaging to actual goth women. Thing is, these OnlyFans creators are just LARPing for monetary gain, and they kinda can just do that. A lot of people just believe that what these creators are portraying goth women as is what they actually are. So this is where gatekeeping comes in. Like, the argument is, if you want to be part of a certain subculture, then you need to know what it's about, what or who influenced it, what kind of messages it promotes, its history, and a bunch of other details. And like, if you don't know these details, then the community will just simply not accept you. Now, this may sound a little harsh, and it can be at times, and I'll get into that. However, it's kind of reasonable, especially considering that being a member of a certain subculture already puts you at a much higher risk of stigma. So in this case, gatekeeping is used as a form of protection because, like, I think we can all agree that nobody wants to be dehumanized just simply for portraying themselves differently than what's considered normal. Now, I mentioned earlier how gatekeeping can be a little harsh at times, and yeah, I want to get into that. A lot of people, and especially young people, as they're growing up and learning more about themselves, tend to try to build some kind of identity. Like what kind of music they enjoy, what kind of fashion they're into, what kind of politics they believe in, and so on. So they'll go on the internet where they find a certain subculture which they think is really cool for any number of reasons. And they're like, man, this aligns with my interests, and I want to be part of it. The issue is that they're most likely haven't done the appropriate research and don't know every little detail about the subculture. And so when they try to interact with the community, they get called out and sometimes even humiliated. See, like in this case, gatekeeping is not being used to protect anyone. If anything, it's just kind of bringing others down. And so this is kind of what I mean when I say gatekeeping can be harsh sometimes. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make, and the whole reason I made this video in the first place, isn't to say whether gatekeeping is inherently positive or negative, but rather to say that there are reasons why people support gatekeeping and reasons why people are against it, and that it's important to understand those reasons regardless of what your opinion on gatekeeping is. I also wanted to mention the concept of taking the two words goth and girls and turning them into more of a phrase than anything, goth girls, in an attempt to market sexual content is extremely dehumanizing, and unfortunately it doesn't only happen to goth women, but many other groups of women. Things like race, sexual identity, line of work, religion, and many other identities can and have been sexualized simply because they belong to a woman. I would like to go way more in depth into this idea, so I probably will make a whole dedicated video on it, but for now, I'll leave it at that. So with all that being said, I hope I was able to contribute something to this topic. I have a lot more that I would like to talk about, so I guess I'm planning on doing this thing more often where like I make a video, kind of edit it, and talk about topics that really interest me. Um, and I'm kind of just doing this for myself, but on the off chance that anyone does end up watching these videos, feedback is definitely welcome. Um, this is really enjoyable. I really enjoyed this, so I do hopefully like I do end up making more of these videos. But I think everything I wanted to say has been said. So yeah, thank you.